Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans and where the content is free. It's a special preview show. We are previewing the Livingston game tomorrow, the first game of the new season. Rangers going into it as champions, and we're all looking forward to that. We're all back in the ground. Well, not all of us, obviously. There's about 25,000 of us getting back in. So a big day for the club. As I say to you every week, guys, if you enjoy what you see here at Gersnet, then give us a wee follow on the social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're live tonight. It's a Friday night. As I say, we're previewing the game tomorrow. But the pod will be available to stream and download on a variety of platforms from tomorrow on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, all those usual places, Spotify, all that kind of thing. So straight on to my guest introductions. We're a wee bit late tonight. I have to hold my hands up. It's all down to me. I've made an arse of it again in typical fashion. Stewart knows all this because I kind of spoke to him last week about it. I was in Dunbar last week. I went through to watch Colin were playing Dunbar through in Dunbar. So I went through there last week. Had a wee bit of a disaster with the trains. We ended up, there was no trains between 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So just as we went to get the train, there was no trains. So we went for another pint, or another few pints, and I left my sunglasses in a pub. So I had to go back today to get them. And, had a few pints and I had another train situation again. So I literally got in the house about 30 minutes ago and ran up an agenda. And, so it's very seat of the pants stuff. So, Stuart, I'm sorry you've been hanging about for the last 20 minutes waiting on me, the drunken arse that I am. How are you?
I'm very well, actually. I never realised that international travel was so difficult, especially with your good self. But no, I'm all's good. I hope you've summered well, and I hope you're rubbing your hands in anticipation for the new season. I am,
because I've actually me and my boy got a ticket. We were successful in the ballot for tomorrow. So yeah, looking forward. I've not been to Ibrox for the Leverkusen game was the last time I was there. My son got a ticket last week thanks to our fellow podder Alex Anderson. So a big thanks to Eck. So it was good that he got. He's never seen Real Madrid before. Yeah. So I know it was. Bale wasn't there and Benzema and all those guys, but just the name to say that you've seen Real Madrid's a pretty big thing. I had seen them, so when there was a ticket available, I gave it him. So he's been back, but I've not. And yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. And strangely, I feel quite nervous about coming back tomorrow. I've kind of got used to, when Rangers are playing, right, I'm going to have a fight with Rangers TV today, and that's just how I watch the football. So I'm, getting up tomorrow. We're going to go through early. We're going to get a breakfast somewhere and make a wee day. So, I was coming back in the train for Dunbar. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the game tomorrow. It feels slightly strange, I must admit.
Yeah, in Alex's case, he was disappointed that Real Madrid didn't have Puskas or Hento or Di Stefano. But
that's why he never took the ticket.
That's why he never took the ticket, yeah. He doesn't like these newcomers. Yeah. But no, it's... I'd imagine there's a bit of... excitedness, maybe a bit of apprehension as well, simply because you're, even though you're going back to watch the team that you support, I think anybody who ventures into the great unknown again, so to speak, in terms of gathering with other people, it's quite strange during the 2 weeks away. Down the south coast of England. One of the days we decided we were going to London for the day, and even though there's this sort of cranking it up and trying to get back to normal, it wasn't. You could just feel that people were still quite wary, and it'll be interesting to see what they're like in terms of a football context. Now, I think there'll be. I wouldn't say there'll be standing-up fights, but there might be one or two people who will be maybe take exception to how people behave or don't behave, as the case might be. And I think that's perfectly normal or reasonable in terms of there's still a bit of a fear factor out there. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I tested positive for COVID. having had both Jags showing no symptoms whatsoever, which for me was even more worrying than trying to avoid it for 18 months.
Yeah.
And again, not the kind to jump around and go to parties and pubs and all the rest of it. Far from it. But I think any household out there who has kids of school age who are attending school and dragging all sorts. And the way I put it, if you can catch nits, you can catch COVID. So it's going to be interesting to see how people sort of take to the football again.
It's interesting you say that because, like you're saying, the way you said it, you've not shown any symptoms there for COVID, and you're saying like kids of a school age. Well, I've got 2 kids of school age, and my wife's a nurse, so it feels impossible to me that COVID hasn't come into my household at some point. But none of us, absolutely none of us, have displayed any symptoms at any point. But I'm like, one of us, at least one of us, must have had it at some point. But we've never known. No one's shown any symptoms, and that's I suppose that's just the nature of the virus. And it's funny you're saying that, people taking offence, because last week when I went to Dunbar, me and my mate went on the train, and there's nothing on the train. Like when I got in the subway, the last time I was on the subway in Glasgow, it was very obvious. There was signs: use this seat, don't use that seat. So you could socially distance. But on the ScotRail trains, there's nothing. It's just basically, if the trains are busy enough, you need to use all the seats. So me and my mate sat down, and this guy immediately got up, and he was just like raging. He sort of had a go at Scott and had a go at me, and it's just like, well, what do you expect us to do, mate? It's a busy train. What do you want us to do? And he just sort of stormed away in another car. So you've got a point. There is still that fear factor.
It was the driver. To be fair, that was the driver you were sitting next to.
Well, there is a bit of that, I suppose. But what really annoyed me was we sat. There was a seat between us. The guy behind them's closer. You know what I mean? But he never made a comment to him saying, "Oh, you need to sit." And it's just a really strange time. And I suppose people are going to have to. The ones that still have that fear factor, the ones that are maybe a wee bit more comfortable, have to sort of give them a wee bit of space. But it'll be interesting to see how it goes tomorrow. I'm interested to see the subway, because just before it all kicked off, going to the Leverkusen game, the subway was interesting to say the least. Loads of people covering their mouths and all that kind of stuff and putting their scarves up. So it'll be interesting to see tomorrow. But I'm sure it'll be good. And I'm slightly nervous, I have to be honest with you, just about going back again. But I'm looking forward to it. But onto the topics at hand, Stuart. I thought the first thing we would talk about is James Tavernier issued a statement today. There's been a wee bit of, it was an open letter. There's been a wee bit of stuff on social media this week about, Rangers players taking the knee and all that kind of thing. Now, I actually had a discussion with my mate today about this, and I'll not go into it, but it's obviously a very sort of complex issue, and people have different views, because I think some people view Black Lives Matter as this sort of far left organisation, and they stand for this, that, or the next thing. However, my view is, Glenn Kamara was on the end of some horrific racial abuse, and I want to stand by him, and I don't really think it's up to us. I've suffered abuse of various sorts, right, but I've never suffered racial abuse, and I don't know what that feels like and how it makes you feel and all that kind of thing. And I always feel that before you can understand how someone feels, that old phrase, you need to walk a mile in their shoes kind of thing. And I'll never understand what Glenn Kamara felt like that night, because I'll never feel how he felt. So, my view is that, if this is how he wants to stand up against the abuse that he received that night, that's kind of his choice. And if his teammates and the people around them, they support that decision, then again, that's up to them. Now, if you don't agree with that, then again, that's fine. That's up to you. If unless you're a far right racist who's disagreeing for whatever reason, but if you view Black Lives Matter as this sort of far left organisation that has ulterior motives, and you disagree with that gesture, fair enough. But surely to boo it would. You're into. I'm not Glenn Kamara, as I said. I've not suffered racial abuse. But if I was doing some sort of gesture to let everyone know that I was standing up to something that I'd suffered, and people were booing that, I wouldn't see that as they're booing the organisation. I would see that they're booing the gesture and what I'm standing up against. And it, to me, if you disagree with it, just stay silent. Just don't do anything. So how do you feel? I mean, I know it is a tricky subject, but for me, it's that whole thing. If you've not got anything good to say, don't say anything at all.
That's probably the best bit of advice that you could have. I get everything that you've said there. I think we saw it during the European Championships with the whole thing about people booing the England team and people booing national anthems. I just don't get that at all. I mean, what purpose does it serve other than to show your own ignorance? The other thing I would say is that when it comes to gestures and the likes, I mean, I'm loath at the start of football matches where it says, and we now will have a minute's applause for somebody who's passed away. I don't want to be applauding somebody who's passed away. I will stand in sort of dignified silence, not with my hands not in my pockets. But the fact is, I will stand. I won't applaud unless it's dependent on the reasons. If it's somebody who's been an entertainer, perhaps, then that's maybe the best way that you can signify just what you think about them. But the rest of the time, I'd much prefer just to stand silent with my own thoughts about that. And I think almost the whole thing about Black Lives Matter and any any support or any show of support that you might have, personally, I think it comes from within and what you are happiest doing, and just leave it at that. I don't think anybody should be criticised for taking a knee. Equally, I don't think anybody should be, abused or be questioned why they're not doing it. You go back a couple of months ago to the situation in the Six Nations rugby, where you had half the England team taking the knee, and then you had other members of the England team not taking the knee, including a couple of guys who were black, and they did that because of their religion, and they said they would only bow to God. Now, again, that's somebody else's thoughts on the matter. I'm absolutely fine with that. Again, they're doing that because they're happy within that they are doing whatever they're doing is justified, and I'm happy to leave it at that. But I mean, the whole thing about jeering and booing, grow up, give yourself a break, and don't make yourself look such an idiot.
I mean, I get the point that, I think it was Zaha at Crystal Palace that sort of said, he's not taking the knee, he stands. And I get that. And I have to admit, see this whole taking the knee thing, I'm like, well, it doesn't really achieve anything, right? It doesn't change anything. And I'm pretty sure Connor Goldson and a couple of other Rangers players came out and said that not so long ago, saying, well, we take the knee and it doesn't actually achieve anything. We need something, some materialistic change. We need things to actually change. However, if that's what these guys who are on the end of, these guys that are opening up, Roof opens up his Instagram, Kamara, all these guys, the minute they open their social media, it's monkey emojis, it's banana emojis. Again, going back to what I said earlier on, if this is their way of rejecting that and taking a stand against it, I don't think anyone who is on the other side of the fence and who hasn't suffered such abuse is in any way in a place to boo it. You can disagree with it and think, well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the organisation behind that. I don't agree with the gesture. But surely you're just like, well, this is this person's way of, protesting against the sort of abuse that they're receiving. So I'll quietly respect their, and that's what Zaha does. He doesn't take the knee. He just stands there. He takes a stand. I don't understand why people need to do it.
On a different take, though, Colin, you would have to say it's the worst piece of marketing and branding ever. Yeah. You know, that you basically take the same knee as an organisation that wants to see society break down. I think, you know, I think that's. I think they could be doing something more on that front and basically distancing themselves from that. And I think that would be a start. That would maybe assist them in some way, shape or form. But I know, for the life of me, I don't know what I might say or what I might do if I was standing next to somebody who's suddenly... I mean, I know what I've done when it comes to national anthems and somebody jeering and booing next to me with a national anthem, and I've told them. So I imagine I might tell them the same. You know, to grow up a bit if it came anything to do with jeering, any gestures made by you know, people in support of Black Lives Matter. But it will be interesting to see how fans around people who are doing that actually behaving and what they say to them.
Yeah, it's. I think it comes down to the sort of thing you were talking about earlier on, because I'm like you. When there's a minute applause, I don't get involved in it. I do the minute silence. That's kind of how it was when I was growing up in football. I think that's more respectful. I think Jimmy Bell gets a hard time because there's that image of him. You know, everyone else is applauding. It was a minute applause for Tommy Burns, and Jimmy Bell sort of standing there. And as you say, he's not standing with his hands in his pockets. He's standing with his hands in front of him, looking quite remorseful. But it's sort of depicted that was him not applauding Tommy Burns and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it would be good. It would be good to. I just hope there's not too many or any boo tomorrow, because I don't think it looks good in the supporters. I don't think it looks good in the club. And I think after everything that Glenn Kamara went through, it's I don't think it's so good. But anyway, on to tomorrow, Stuart. First competitive game at Ibrox since the Bayer Leverkusen game. As we were saying earlier on, a kind of big shift back to normality, and hopefully this is the building blocks for, you know, full houses in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know, we've had so many false starts along the way when it's come to COVID and restrictions. You know, it only seems a matter of months ago. It's actually a year ago when I was on holiday, you know, you were dining out to help out, and everything seemed, you know, it seemed a far off land, very distant. And I mean, last night we went out for a meal, and again, it's, you know, the whole thing about walking into a restaurant with a mask on and then taking it off so you can eat and sitting next to, you know, around other people. It's almost like you walk through some sort of magic spray or car wash, which douses you in something that means that anything you are carrying is immediately killed off. I mean, it's such a strange times we live in, but we have to be thinking, you know, that we're getting back to some sort of normality. Of course, we have to say this only applies to viewers in Scotland, because if you think about English games and other sporting events taking place in England, like the British Grand Prix, the golf and the likes, they seem to manage, and they don't seem to be any, you know, of the kind of horrendous spikes that people have been predicting. So hopefully, again, not only will people enjoy the moment of getting back to the football, they'll also be relatively safe in doing so. And I think that's the biggest thing, that, you know, small steps to start with, but that it's not going to be too long before any restrictions are lifted when it comes to spectator sports and watching football and anything else within a stadium environment. Because ultimately, I think, you know, there are a lot of people out there saying, you know, people's over the last 18 months, people's mental well-being hasn't been what it should. And I have to say, a chunk of that for a great many people is entirely football related. You know, how many times do you go to the football? And people have gone to football not because what they're watching on the pitch is very good, and that would apply to Rangers fans, just as it would anyone. But you go there because you're going to see your mates.
So it's a social aspect,
Absolutely, and human beings need that. And again, that side of it, I think there will be people feeling a hell of a lot better that that they're able to sort of walk amongst each other and communicate with each other, rather than doing it through Zoom calls and the likes.
It's the first game, Stuart, first game at Ibrox since 2011 where Rangers have opened the season, as champions. And Stephen Gerrard at his press conference today was saying, the players should embrace that challenge. It's a sort of big mentality change going from the hunters to the hunted.
Yeah.
So it'll be quite interesting, I think, to see how the players deal with it, because, I mean, before we won it last season, a lot of these players were sort of looked at as not mentally strong enough, and now they've done it. It'll be interesting to see if they're capable of retaining it.
I was thinking that to myself actually today. Sort of running through what we might be discussing. You go back 12 months again. I go and it's you look at the start that Rangers made to the season. Now, as you rightly say, if you're champions, you have kicked off with a home game. So you're right. 2011 is a very long time ago. Yeah. But last year, it was people were concerned, a bit of consternation. There was a bit of upset, a bit of maybe even anger. That first game up for the season, not only Rangers are they away, they're up against Aberdeen. How does the computer manage to throw that one up? It's almost like that's somebody's dealt you a poor card on that one. But Rangers went to Pittodrie and turned in a really business-like performance, not just in terms of the result, but also the way that they handled the game. A 1-0 victory at Pittodrie is, for me, I always took it that a 1-0 win at Pittodrie was every bit as good if you'd scored 3 goals or 4 goals, because it meant you'd actually be in control and as Graham Souness often said, and I think Winston Churchill said it as well, one is enough, and that was that was proof that Rangers had gone there and had got their act together almost immediately. And I think, different circumstances obviously, but I think that is the kind of level of performance that Rangers are needing tomorrow, in terms of, we're back, it's business as usual, we are the champions, this is what we did last season, and just suck the air out of the opposition's performance. If it's 1-0, if it's 2-0, 3-0, fine, you take it and move on. If it's 1-1, what do? You have to take that as well and say it's early in the season, these things happen. I've been at Ibrox for the first game of the season. I remember Rangers losing, and a costly loss, against St Mirren, when Kenny McDowell rattled Chris Woods.
I was there that day. I was there. Yeah, we got beat 1-0.
Rangers lost 1-0 and suddenly were in need of a goalkeeper. So, strange things can happen in the opening day. It's not because you get home advantage. It means the opposition are going to lie down, or you're guaranteed 3 points. So I think you have to, brace yourself for whatever comes. But I would have to think that Rangers, the players, the mentality of the players must be, we didn't want last season to end. We lapped it up. Now we want to go out and give fans a chance to see what we were doing on the pitch last year and listen to them. And it'll work one of two ways. It will either scare the living daylights out of some of them, that there's actually people shouting at them, telling them what they should be doing, or it will inspire them. And I think that part of it is, probably the thing I'm looking forward to in terms of how the Rangers players handle it. Do they go back into their shell as they were guilty of for a couple of seasons? And you would have to agree with that and say that at times at Ibrox, the Rangers' performance wasn't what it should have been in front of their home support, or are they going to be spurred on by it? And hopefully it's the latter.
It's funny you talk about that game against the Mirren. I think that was the death knell for Lindsay Hamilton's career at Ibrox, because did Souness run out and sign Bonnie Ginsberg right in the back of that? I think everyone thought, well, this is his chance. And then I went to a game midweek. It was a League Cup game.
Correct.
Can't remind who it was, and Bonnie Ginsberg had been signed that day.
And the story of that is that Lindsay Hamilton had got tickets for all his family to basically come and see him making his Rangers debut. And got the tickets, got it all organised, and was then introduced to this is Israeli goalkeeper Bonnie Ginsberg, who again didn't make the most auspicious of starts, because Rangers lost the following week 2-0 at Easter Road. So it was again. This will sound like a couple of old guys pontificating and talking about the good old days or bad old days, but it is only to forewarn people that what you expect, you don't always get it. So I still see Rangers taking 3 points. I think it's got to be the level of performance that most people are going to be looking for, especially with such a big game taking place again next week.
In terms of the squad, we seem in fairly decent shape, Stuart. Gerard was, again, at his press conference today, it's only sort of Ryan Jack, who's obviously coming back from that injury. I think he's 2 or 3 weeks away yet, as it has been for the last sort of year and a bit, I suppose. And obviously Alfredo Morelos just back in the country. He's having to go through his sort of COVID stuff and sort of self-isolate. And when you look at the Rangers squad now, even missing those 2 players, there was a time if you took those 2 players out, Rangers looked a bit threadbare. But it seems we've got the squad now is so strong, and going into this season, it looks like we're in good shape, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Morelos, you're absolutely right in what you're saying there. It was almost. Everybody was trying to do Rangers in, from the opposition teams to the SFA to, you name it, even himself with his attitude at times. Just now, I think that Morelos will be desperate to get back on the pitch, because the early indications are that Fashion Sakala could certainly look like the real deal. I mean, I have never read much into friendly matches, be it pre-season, mid-season, warm-up games for major tournaments, even at international level. I've never really taken to friendly matches. Great if you're going along and you want to see players that you've never seen before, or great if you're going along. I remember going to see Rangers against AC Milan, simply because the AC Milan side was packed with guys, like Beckham and Ronaldinho and these kind of guys. So it was worth going to see that kind of spectacle. But performance-wise, they're always a bit iffy. However, what I will say is the way Fashion Sakala took his goal was, I ended up thinking to myself, here's a guy runs past a defender, suddenly finds himself almost 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper and just smashes it past the goalkeeper. Now, how many Rangers strikers have you seen down through the years who are at their most uncomfortable, not when they're getting kicked about with a centre back, but actually when they almost go 1-on-1 and only have the goalkeeper to beat? How many have you seen miss great opportunities or just freeze when it comes time to putting the ball in the net? You could never say, I'll stake my house on him being in this position and scoring. You couldn't say that about Morelos. You couldn't say it about Chris Boyd. You couldn't say it about Kenny Miller. You couldn't say, maybe even couldn't say it about Ali McCoist. But
I'd stop you there. But anyway, keep going.
No. Listen, I can remember him having a few, missing a few as well. Every striker does it, but it was just good to see after a long time. He was a striker who actually, decided this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm hitting it, this is how hard I'm hitting it. The other thing is you see strikers calling getting through and goal and try to be too clever. I'll try and curl it, the keeper's got a hand on it. I'll try and chip it, the keeper's got a hand on it. He went for broke. He had confidence in his own ability just to pick a spot and absolutely lash that ball into the net. And I thought that was, I thought to myself there, all of a sudden you'll have other strikers. Doesn't matter whether it was Morelos, didn't matter if it was Roof, didn't matter if it was Itten, sitting there watching that, think to themselves, this guy's up for it.
Yeah, I think Kevin Thompson said that in the commentary. It was a bit Chris Boyd-esque, head down, laces through it, boom, the keeper's not getting it. So yeah, it was a good finish, and I'm quite excited. I'm looking forward. I'm assuming he'll play some part at some point tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to seeing. In terms of Livingston, Stuart, a decent season last year under Martindale. They kind of tailed off a wee bit towards the end. He came in, he had this sort of immediate impact. Kind of tailed off. They've had a decent pre-season. I'm having a wee look at their pre-season here. They beat Lincoln Red Imps, which even the St Brendan couldn't even beat them. So they've beat Lincoln Red Imps. And some of their friendly games have been, they're not even friendly. Some of their pre-seasons has been the Premiership Cup or the Premier Sports Cup. Sorry, they've played Brechin at Alloa. And, they've won pretty much all their games. So, and Livingston always seem to provide a decent opposition for Rangers, even at Ibrox. I remember one game at Ibrox, maybe about 20 years ago, about 2002, 2003. Rangers were, I think they were 4-0 up at one point, and it finished 4-3. You know what I mean? So they've always seemed to have that ability to make Rangers, work for the points. Are you expecting the same tomorrow?
They don't have the advantage that they do have when they're playing on their Axminster carpet at the whatever the name of the stadium is next week. But they use that to their advantage. They'll be well organised. They'll be difficult to break down. They'll be kind of to use the word stuffy. It won't be pretty. They will be dangerous, however. They do have a game plan, which is to frustrate, which is to get the ball, try and keep possession, and when you do get the ball, try and hit in the counter or try and keep it long enough that you can actually create something by it. They, managerial wise, they have a guy who is pretty well versed in terms of Scottish football now. I would say his performances as a coach and a manager were as good as anybody last season, and what he achieved, reaching a cup fight or reaching the last stage of the cup tournaments. He is pretty thorough in what he does. He's added to his coaching backroom staff. They've got a good guy, not just because he's a pal of mine, in Dougie Emery. In terms of somebody who is a good thinker about the game and very perceptive as well. So I think the fact they've added to their squad on that side of the sort of dressing room as well says that they're in for the long haul. They're here not just to make up the numbers, but to build upon what they achieved last season. And again, First game out the box. It'll be interesting to see how they go about their business, especially when they're stepping onto a big stage again, because they'll have a number of guys in their team who haven't really experienced what it is to play in front of a big crowd, especially a potentially hostile one, as it might be at Ibrox tomorrow, when you've got 25,000, including lucky people who have got tickets. Put your hand up. That's it. Cheering on their team. So I think if they take anything from the game, it will be a Brucey bonus for them, won't it? It's not expected of them, but I think long term and through the season, they don't strike me as a team who are suddenly going to fold and suddenly find themselves in the mire of relegation struggles. I think there are teams, in that top flight who I would be looking or casting an eye over and thinking to myself, you need to go off to a decent start, or else you could be in a bit of bother this season. And the other thing is, it's going to be interesting to pick up all your morning papers tomorrow and see how people are tipping to go down, because after tipping Hamilton Accies to go down for the last 7 years, there's so many of them saying, well, I got it right, having got it wrong for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
So their banker, their get out of jail card, are just predicting Hamilton Accies will go down, won't be there. So I imagine it'll be interesting as well to see a few and who they think might be relegated or find themselves at the bottom of the table. Probably, I would say, maybe a team or a manager that you're not going to face very often in a press conference. That's the way it usually works.
Right, sure. Before I wrap things up and ask the final question, I need to highlight, I should have mentioned this earlier on, I've had Frankie in my ear giving me a row. I should highlight our partners at Football Prizes and the current thing that's going at the moment. So it's a Steven Gerrard signed Rangers shirt. I'm looking at it again just now. Absolutely cracking bit of kit signed by Steven Gerrard. So to give yourself an opportunity of winning this, log on to www.footballprizes.co.uk. Tickets cost £4.95. There's 99 tickets available for the draw. I don't know how many are left. I can't give you that at the moment. So £4.95. The competition ends next Friday the 6th. So get yourself on to www.footballprizes.co.uk to give your chance of winning the Steven Gerrard signed Rangers shirt with Football Prizes. So, final question of tonight, Stuart. Obviously, it is a 2-horse race up here in Scotland. The other horse is looking a bit lame at the moment. Celtic really do look a bit of a shambles at the moment. Thoroughly enjoyed them going out the other night and had a good chuckle at that. That's part of the rivalry. Get it up them. But you would suspect that they will get players in before the window closes. They'll get players in. The new manager. I can't even pronounce his name. Someone gave me a name the day. What was it? Oh God. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Ange. Aye. What was it? Oh, I can't mind. It was a piss take his name, but I can't mind. Anyway, I've had too many beers. But you would expect it. I mean, he's a bit an unknown quantity. So if he gets 3 or 4 players in, they are a bit of an unknown quantity if that happens. So how important is it that Rangers, we look strong at the moment? How important is it that we get off to a really, really good start? Because as I say, the window's a few weeks away yet. They've still got to get players in. Doesn't feel like they've had a pre-season. It just feels like it's been a shambolic pre-season for them. So a good start for Rangers could put us in a really, really strong position. Do you not think?
I think you're right, and also even just down to the kickoff times tomorrow, the Rangers could be sitting there with 3 points already in the bag, and all of a sudden the pressure is heaped on Celtic at Tynecastle. Remember what I said about last season when earlier on in the show when I said about Rangers going to Pittodrie and that being a difficult start. 1 or 2 of my Celtic pals are basically saying, I see it's been fixed again that we're going to Tynecastle for the first game. Listen, it is what it is. You have to go there at some point in time, but it could be difficult. I think the manager is struggling to bring in players. It only goes to show how much, and I've said it in Talk Sport, like how much Celtic took their eye off the ball during the pandemic. That there was almost a coronation of Celtic as champions without having to see out the season, and a great many people, obviously within the Celtic management and obviously in the Celtic boardroom, believed that was number 9 in the bag. Number 10 would follow, and there wasn't much that they had to tweak or much that they had to change. When other people who had watched Celtic, including myself, who saw them against Copenhagen in the Europa League, sitting beside one or two ex-Celtic players, could not believe just how bad that Celtic side were. Now, a lot of the players that played that night have now gone, and nobody has replaced them. No. And you go
it's
back.
Brilliant.
Well, yeah, you may say that, I couldn't possibly comment, but the fact of the matter is, you go back to the game last Wednesday and look at who finished the match as a Celtic back four. And it was one that would have left you open mouthed. Now, I think before the end of the transfer window, new players will come in. But even right at this minute in time, the whole sales pitch for Celtic, we are in Europe, we are in the Champions League qualifiers, come and join us. That sales pitch has now changed because they're not. It's gone. It's not there. And this is not poking fun at Celtic. This is basically telling you as it is and how it was for Rangers over several seasons, when Rangers wasn't the attraction that it could have been, simply because the whole sort of attraction and lure of European football wasn't there. So there's a bigger rebuilding job to be done across the other side of Glasgow. Listen, it's for Rangers to take advantage of that and to make a statement and make their mark early on in the season before Celtic start to strengthen. If Celtic pick up a couple of results, that's what happens. But again, I think the opportunity is there with Rangers, with a settled squad, have all their players available, and could actually put some points on the board while Celtic are still in disarray.
Well, here's hoping that's the case, Stuart. But looking at the clock, I think that's ample for us tonight. So, big thanks to Stuart for joining us tonight. Big apologies for me for turning up late in a drunken stupor. I apologise for that. We'll have a show on Sunday night reviewing the game tomorrow, obviously. So join Ross. I think it's Ross that's hosting on Sunday night. Join Ross for that. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Guys, if you're going to the game tomorrow, enjoy it. It's been a long time since we've been back at Ibrox for a competitive game. If you're not going, your time will come and enjoy the game, watching it on TV with friends and whatever you're doing. Things are getting back to normal. We are the people. And until the next time, bye for now.
Thank you, Michael Portillo.